So today we're talking about Slope-Intercept Form. And Slope-Intercept Form is my very most favorite way to graph. So you can graph by table, you can graph by all these other things. But my very most favorite way to graph is by Slope-Intercept Form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the back of your packet. If you take your packet out, go to the back, you have all these grids. And I want to show you one of the reasons it's my favorite. Now, if we were in class right now, I'd have you pick the numbers, but you're not. So what I would say is, okay, give me a number between 1 and 5. 3. Make it positive or negative. You make it negative. Give me another number between 1 and 5, and you give me 2. And then I'll say plus or minus, and then I would say give me another number, and you give me 5. Okay? So then what I would do is I'd have you time me as far as how fast I can graph this, because I want to show you why this is so cool and why you want to learn slope-intercept. So, are you ready? Set, go. And I'm done. I have graphed this line using slope and y-intercept, and that's what I'm going to teach you today, is how to graph a line using slope-intercept. So let's get going. First off, we need to know what slope-intercept form looks like. What is slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. Okay? Now, we already know that m is slope. So this is slope. We already learned that on Monday. Now, we talked about the y-intercept on Tuesday. And the interesting thing, you thought that was weird. We're going to use b for y-intercept. We aren't. That was determined for us. Okay, that is y-intercept. So m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. Now, they don't make a lot of sense, but I'll tell you in just a second. That's going to be really helpful. So what is slope? We talked about this before. This is the steepness of the line. Okay, and the y-intercept, we talked about this before too. And the y-intercept, that is where the graph, so where the graph of the line crosses the y-axis. And like I explained before, this is the y-intercept. This is where the y-axis intercepts the graph. The y-axis intercepts the graph. Okay, and so we talked about that before too. So we're just going to start off with some real basic stuff here. Write an equation in slope-intercept form given the slope and the y-intercept. So all we're going to do is we're going to plug it into this formula. So if I look at my first one, y equals, well, what is, and we have an x, and we have a plus. So now let's fill in what is slope. Well, they say slope is 4. There we go. And they say the y-intercept is -2. Now, I can write it like that. I can also rewrite it to be y is equal to 4x minus 2. Both of these are correct. Okay, same thing we're going to do with number 2. If you want to, pause the thing right now, or do it while I'm talking. Write that equation in slope-intercept form. So we're going to plug it, what am I doing? We're going to plug in the slope and the y-intercept. So we have the slope is -1/2, and the y-intercept is 5. Okay? Number 3, the slope is 0. Oh, that should be a red flag. If the slope is 0, what kind of line do I have? Well, you hopefully remember that if this vertical line is undefined. So if the slope is undefined, that is a vertical line. Slope is 0, that's going to be a horizontal line. Okay? And that tells us what the y-intercept is. So if I were to, well, we'll get into that later. Let's just plug it in. Y equals 0x plus 3. Okay? But would we have 0? What's 0 times x? Isn't that just 0? So rewrite this to be y is equal to 3. And when we look on the back, I'll tell you more about if I'm given that the slope is undefined. We'll go from there. Okay, so how to graph a line from an equation. Let's look back at slope-intercept form, and believe it or not, it actually tells us what we're going to be doing here. So I'm going to write out that equation one more time. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so if I'm doing y equals mx plus b, here's what I want you to realize. This is not what they stand for, but it really is helpful. M is going to be what I move using slope. And B is where I begin. The y-intercept is where I begin. So M and B do not stand for move and begin. That is not what they stand for. At least I don't believe that's what it stands for. But this tells us what we're going to do. We're going to begin with the y-intercept. So over here when it says how to graph a line from an equation, we're going to begin with the y-intercept. So we're going to plot the y-intercept on the y-axis. Okay, it doesn't seem like I should have to say this, but if it's the y-intercept, plot it on the y-axis. See how those match? Then we're going to move using our slope. So use the slope to place 2 more points on the line. And then we connect the points with a line, so and place arrowheads on both ends. Okay, so we connect it. We connect all of the points together. It seems like that's kind of, you wouldn't believe it, but there are people who did not connect the points on the last test, so I want to make sure that you realize you need to connect those points. So if we remember, we begin with our y-intercept and we move with our slope. So here we go. Let's first write down what everything is. Our y-intercept, that's where we begin, that is 1. Our slope is 2. Now this is, like I said on Monday's lesson, is that you want to remember that whatever the slope is, a lot of times it's easier if I write it as a fraction, because the slope is a change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to write this actually as 2 over 1. If I'm graphing, I'm always going to write my slope as a fraction. So I begin with my y-intercept right here. Now I'm going to use my slope. I only have to get 2 more points. I'm going to show you how to get 3. So then you can decide, because there are sometimes you have to use this method. So I start at 1. My top number is my up and down. So that tells me it's a positive. I'm going to go up 2. The bottom number tells me I'm going to go to the right or the left. It's positive, so I go to the right. There is a second point. Okay? Now I can just do that again. I can go from the point I just made, and I can go up 2 again and over 1. That is one option. The other thing I can do is I can go back to my y-intercept, and I can do the opposite. So before I went up 2 and over 1, now I'm going to go down 2 and over 1. So I've changed both of them to their opposite. 2 over 1 can also be written as negative 2 over negative 1. And so that's what I did to get this last point. I don't need 4, but I want you to know where you can find points. I, a lot of times, will use these 2, but sometimes I have to just keep on going. All of them work. Okay? And now I'm going to connect those points. If you have a straight edge, that's awesome, so you can get straight. And I want that line to go all the way to the edge of your grid. I want it to go from top of the grid so it goes off. And then you want to have arrowheads because a line continues forever and ever in 2 directions. Okay? So here we go. Number 2, write down the y-intercept and the slope. Go. So the y-intercept is negative 4. This is my y-intercept right here. My slope is negative 3. But because I'm going to use it for graphing, I'm going to write it as negative 3 over 1. When I'm graphing, I want my slope to be a fraction. It just makes it a little easier. Okay, so I begin with my y-intercept. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to use my slope. Well, here I'm going to go down 3. If I go down 3, I'm off the grid. I would be over here approximately. Okay? But that kind of gets a little confusing. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to think of it as 3 over negative 1. Okay? So see how I just switched where that negative sign was. I didn't switch the numbers. I just switched their directions. This one went down. Now it's going to go up. This one went to the right. Now it's going to go to the left. So I just switched the direction, not the numbers. So I'm going to go up 3 to the left 1. Up 3 to the left 1. Okay? And so for a straight edge, I have a sticky notepad. I'm going to line those up. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want you to see this is where our other point would have been. Okay? And I'm going to draw that line in. Okay? And I go all the way to the end, and I draw my arrowheads. Okay? Good. I'd like you to try number 3. So I'd like you to pause and try number 3. Hopefully you had a chance to try it. We know the y-intercept is negative 3 and the slope is 2/3. Now here, The slope is already a fraction, so we don't have to change it into a fraction or rewrite it as a fraction. So hopefully you started at -3. I'm going to go up 2 over 1, 2, 3. I could go up 2 and over 3 again, but I'm going to instead go back to my y-intercept and go the opposite direction. So instead of going up, I'm going to go down 2, and I'm going to go 3 to the left. I'm going to pull out my straight edge, and I'm going to graph it. Now, if you just did slope upwards twice, your other point would have been up 2, let's see, up 2 over 3. Oops. So my line is a little off. Let's see, up 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. So it should have been over this way a little bit. Okay? Good. Now look at number 4. My equation, I'm going to rewrite it since I kind of wrote over the top of it. Y equals -1/2 x. Well, what's the y-intercept? There's not one there. Okay? So hopefully your mind went to, well, if there's not one there, what I'm really doing is I'm adding 0. That is my y-intercept, and that is possible. My y-intercept is 0. So if I don't see something in the y-intercept spot, I'm going to do that. Now notice what I did. They have negative out in front of 1/2. I stuck it up in the top. It doesn't matter. Something has to be negative. If there's one negative there, it doesn't matter if you go in the top or the bottom. I always move it to the top. Okay? It just makes it easier for me. So here we go. I'm going to plot 0, 0. Oh, you know what? Try this one on your own. Go. Pause. So we plotted 0, 0. Using my slope, I'm going to go down 1 to the right 2. Then I'm going to go up 1 to the left 2. And of course, I could have gone down 1 and over 2 again and been right there. Let's take that straight edge and draw in our line. Up. Okay, and a good straight edge is your student ID. Hopefully you have that. Student ID, just a business card, or a ruler. You could actually use a ruler. Okay, so that's graphing using slope and y-intercept. Now on the back it says write an equation in slope-intercept form from a graph. So we're going to start out. So the first thing we're going to do is the same as what we did before. Begin with the y-intercept. So find the y-intercept. See how that B comes in handy? That's where we begin. Count to determine the slope. So we're going to go back to what we learned 2 lessons ago about counting to find slope. And then write in slope-intercept form. Write the equation in slope-intercept form. Okay? So see right here, I don't like that they didn't continue it all the way down. I think the line should go from the grid to the grid. So here we go. We're going to start on this one. What is our y-intercept? Where does the graph cross the y-axis? Well, right there. So it's going to be 2. Oops, they wanted slope first. Put that in the wrong spot. Why did they write it that way? Y-intercept is what we begin with. Okay, now we're going to find slope. So now we have to go back to our whole number points. Well, obviously my y-intercept is a whole number point. Where is another whole number point? Right there. Okay, those are 2 whole number points. So we're going to count. So here we go. What are we starting with? I'm going to start with my left hand. So I'm going to go up 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I went up 4, so it's a positive 4. And then I went to the right 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have my y-intercept and my slope. So y equals 4/3 x plus 2. Okay, good. If you want to try this next one, that would be awesome. Pause yours. So if you wanted to try it on your own, hopefully you paused yours and you wrote all the information in. So I'm going to walk through how we did it. First, I'm going to find the y-intercept. There it is. Y-intercept is -3. Now I'm going to find the slope by finding another whole number point. Oh, right there. There's a whole number point. So that one didn't take long. I'm going to start with my right hand first. I go up 2. Up 2. That's a positive. Then I go to the left one, so that's a -2. Whoops, -1. I went up 2, -1. So my slope is -2. Now I can write it as a fraction, but if I'm just writing the equation, I'm going to go ahead and write it as just a whole number. So my equation is y equals the slope, -2x minus 3. Okay? Okay, now, look at these down here. These are some of my favorite ones because I have a horizontal and vertical line. Okay? Now, we know that, and I'm going to actually start with this one. We know vertical line is undefined. Vertical line is undefined. Hopefully you've learned that and stuck it in your head. Vertical line is undefined. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to realize. So the slope on this is going to be undef. It's going to be undefined. Okay, and what's our y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't apply. So you can put NA or you can put none. NA means not applicable because we're not going to cross the y-axis. So what's our equation? Hold that thought. Okay, now let's come over here. Well, if this is a vertical line and it's undefined, this is a horizontal line, so my slope is 0. Now, we do have a y-intercept here. That's the one thing we do have. It crosses the y-axis. Where does it cross the y-axis? At 5. So we're going to come back to that equation. One of the things that I want you to realize with a vertical and horizontal line, notice it only crosses one axis. Well, if I have a vertical line, what axis does it cross? So I want you to ask yourself this question. What axis does it cross? Okay, same thing over here. What axis does it cross? Because here's what I need you to understand. Whatever axis it crosses, that's your equation. So if a line crosses only one axis, that is your equation. Okay, now that doesn't make a lot of sense like that. So what I'm saying is your equation is, if it crosses only that axis, that is the equation. So let me explain a little bit more. This crosses the x-axis. So my equation is x equals whatever x is. Whatever axis it crosses, that is my equation. The axis. And so here it's going to be x equals whatever number it crosses. Where does it cross? At -3. Okay? This one crosses the y-axis. So it's y equals whatever y is. What is y? It crosses at 5. So my equation is y equals 5, x equals -3. So look to see what axis it crosses. That's going to be your equation. I might do some more of those if we get a chance, okay? But I want you to keep in mind, whatever axis it crosses, that's going to be my equation. Whatever axis it crosses, that's going to be my equation, okay? So if it crosses the y, that's going to be my equation. Okay, now we just have 2 more to try. I'd like you to do these on your own. Go. So on this first one, we found out our y-intercept is 2, and our graph goes down 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so -1/5. So our equation is y is equal to -1/5 x plus 2. And over here, my y-intercept was 4, and my slope is up 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice this one points in a direction like this, so I knew it was going to be a negative slope. This one points over here, it's a positive slope. So y equals 3/4 x plus 1. Good. Let's take a look at your homework. So in your packet, your homework is going to be like this, but before we go any further, I want you to realize there's a Schoology assignment out there. I want you to start in Schoology. Okay? This assignment, what happened to the guy who fell into an upholstery machine? So it just kind of makes it more interesting. You're still going to graph the same way. You're going to start with your y-intercept, and you're going to go through and use that point. So I'm going to just graph that one. Okay? And so here we go. I'm going to start with -2. Oh, wow. I have 9 equations, so I'm going to have to do it more than one on a graph. I'm going to have to do 3 equations on each of these graphs. And what's going to happen is it's going to go through one of these letters. So I'm going to do the first one for you so you see what we're talking about. So I start at -2. My slope is 3/4, so I'm going to go up 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, well, this one's kind of obvious what this is going through. So then, what letter does that? Oh, whoops, sorry. Bad practice. Then I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Go both directions. Use both points. And one of the reasons we do that is you make one little mistake and you are off. So that one goes through the point U. Okay? So U goes with number 1. So now I come down to the bottom. U goes with number 1. So here is U. Are there any other number 1s? No. Okay, so you get the idea. You're going to have to do these 2 lines also on this grid. So you're doing this assignment. On the back, I believe we're doing about the same thing. Ah, yes, but this time they only give us one equation, so it's going to be one letter from each one. And we go through and graph this one, find the letter, okay, and that would then go first. Use a slope, the graph is extended, cross the line, look for the letter in the string of letters, cross it out when each time it appears. When you finish, write the remaining letters. Oh, cross off, write the remaining letters at the bottom of the page. Okay, good. So do the Schoology assignment of these two. Now, I will let you know that seems like it's a lot of work, but tomorrow we're just going to go over a couple examples off of this page and answer questions, and then you're going to have the rest of the time to work. So you will have 3 pages in your packet to do and the Schoology assignment, but you will have Friday to work. So get some of it done today, the first day, and then finish it up the next day. Good. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. Thank you.